Inside Apple's iPhone factory in China. Hello viewers, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today in this video, we will talk about inside Apple's iPhone factory in China. However, before we start our countdown, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel and also press the bell icon. So let's get started. If you own an iPhone, then it might have come from Foxconn's factory in Zhengzhou, China. The company employs 300,000 workers at the facility devoted to producing Apple's latest handset. While for many the jobs can be monotonous, outside the factory Foxconn's presence has turned the nearby residences into a mecca of activity and entertainment. Foxconn is the biggest employer in China with some 1.3 million members of staff on the books in 2018. It manufactures consumer electronics for a variety of companies from Samsung to Dell to HP, but is most famous for manufacturing Apple products, and most notably the area around the Foxconn factory in Zhengzhou was once home to mainly farms, but now it's become a hub of growth as developers come in constructing new apartments and shops. The Wojin Commercial Square is the latest structure to come and features high-rise apartments along with new shops in what's an outdoor mall-like atmosphere. Fully half of all the world iPhones, many hundreds of millions, are manufactured at a sprawling Foxconn facility on the outskirts of Zhengzhou. Zhengzhou is a city of around 9.5 million people in Hunan province, historically a poverty-stricken province of the People's Republic. Locals often refer to the Zhengzhou Foxconn plant as iPhone City, and that's a pretty fair description. At peak time, some 350,000 staff work there, most living in dormitories on site. During the build-up to a big new iPhone release, the plant can produce as many as 500,000 units a day. That's nearly 350 every minute around the factory. Supporting businesses such as restaurants, massage parlors, and shoe shops have sprung up to support the mammoth workforce inside the Zhengzhou factory, which is dedicated to the final stage of iPhone assembly. Some 400 discrete tasks are broken down and carried out by its army of workers. Most employees will perform one task repeatedly over and over again day after day. This could be as interesting as soldering or as dull as fitting a single screw into the back of the devices again and again and again. So how do they recruit? Back in 2017, a student at NYU called DZ went undercover for 6 months at the Zhengzhou plant to investigate the labor. According to Zin's report, all he had to do to get hired was join a queue of eager applicants outside the factory. Sin was asked for his identification and retired to recite the English alphabet as it was in common use in the factory. Then he was in Zen, worked on an assembly line with around 200 other recruits, monotonously assembling many hundreds of devices per shift. He said the work was boring and tiring, but didn't report any specific abuses across the ruling 6-day week. Aside from a supervisor yelling every now, his main complaint was that the overtime was presented as voluntary, but was very clearly mandatory on pain of being fired. It's been reported elsewhere that the Chinese government itself keen to keep this lucrative business running smoothly steps in to help with the never-ending recruitment drive during peak summer months. In the build-up to the traditional autumn iPhone release date, a speaker is set to stand at the Zhengzhou factory gate, yelling out for workers who are optimistic and diligent. Hunan province even reportedly sets quotas for the numbers of workers that villages and cities should provide to keep the factory ticking over efficiently and effectively. The gender balance on the factory floor is said to be roughly equal, and the typical age of a factory worker is between 18 and 25, though interns are frequently as young as 16. And while underage workers have been found in Apple's supply chain, nearly a dozen 15-year-old children were discovered to be working across 3 factories. According to one report, there are no reports that Foxconn's Zhengzhou facility was directly involved. Worker conditions in Zhengzhou, while not as brutal as sweatshops, seem extraordinary to Western eyes. Factory workers stay close by the plant in dorm buildings, up to 12 stories high, with 8 workers sharing a room, sometimes with only 1 bathroom per floor, shared by as many as 200 people. US-based pressure group China Labor Watch discovered during undercover investigations that workers are actively forbidden from resigning their posts during busy peak times, but conceded that the most egregious allegations of brutality and bullying made by others have perhaps been overstated. One worker whose role was wiping special polish onto the LCD screens said she handled around 1,700 iPhones a day, and that it was mundane work, but also that there were worse things to endure in life than mono. However, The grin of working 6 straight days, only seeing family on Sunday if they happen to live locally, clearly takes its toll. The most common complaint about working at Foxconn in Xiao is boredom. When NY student Zhang spent those 6 weeks on the production line, he said he quickly grew to hate it. Real workers speaking anonymously have claimed a high turnover of staff. After a year, people get bored or disinterested, claimed one. When that happens, they leave. Other Foxconn workers have said that while building iPhones isn't exactly their childhood dream, the facility is no better or worse than other Chinese factories they'd worked at. Of course, there is a much darker side to the allegations leveled to Apple, although not directly related to the assembly plant in Zhengzhou. It has been reported that Apple products had been made using forced Uyghur labor, an ethnic minority in China, who endure horrific working conditions and even wage theft by unscrupulous. According to the New York Times, lawmakers in the United States have proposed legislation designed to curb American companies' ability to use forced weaker labor. Apple, it is said, set out to weaken the bill. Although Apple, for its part, says it did not lobby against the legislation, but instead had, as the company puts it, constructive discussions with the relevant congressional staff. And as for those MacBook makers at Sui Electronics, we mentioned at the start when the issue came to light, Apple told the firm to address the issue or risk losing business. But Apple otherwise continued to work with Suyin for 3 years. Former members of the so-called supply responsibility team at Apple told reporters from the information that the Suwon incident wasn't isolated, and that profits sadly seem to have been the driving force between decision-making. So what does the future look like for Apple and its labor practices as living standards in China inevitably improve? So does the cost of labor, and so the factories may well move elsewhere. Foxconn recently found itself in hot water for exaggerating its starving requirements to Apple in order to illicitly cream profits from the Californian firm. So it's not always a cozy relationship between the two giants. Most undercover student Zhang observed in 2017 that several stations on the production line where he worked were already taken up by robots known in-house as Foxbots, a trend that will surely continue. However, its iPhones are manufactured. Going forward into the future, let's just hope Apple's working practices live up to the firm's lofty brand ideals, and that latter-day disciples of Steve Jobs can at least help someone somewhere get a good job. What do you think? Is Apple justify keeping suppliers at arm's length in order to keep costs competitive for the end user? So this was our today's video. I hope you all liked this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe my channel. And also share it with your friends and family. We will be back soon with a new video. Till then, keep supporting and take care.